Ano yung birthday niya? Sinutok mo ako ng phone. Laki-laki. Ano na? Wala. Oh, gusto yung akin. Hindi sa ano? Sa university sa ano? Advisor. Support. Oh, yeah.
Hello, test. Can everybody hear me? Put some hands up in the air if you can. Thank you. All right, let's get this rolling. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the San Diego Zoo Guided Bus Tour. I'll be your tour guide and driver today. My name is Pat.
Hi, Pat.
We're going to be going on about a 35 to 40 minute tour. Cover about 70% of the zoo. We're going to talk about some of our conservation hubs, our conservation partners, and of course, we'll be talking about animals. Now, let's go find our very first one.
Right there!
As we cross the front plaza, take a look to your right, and you'll see our very pink, very beautiful American flamingos.
Flamingos.
Not
Right
quite
there,
yet,
not
we're almost there.
flamingos.
Okay, there we go. There's our American flamingos. They are the most pink and vibrant of the 6 species that exist. Now they get that beautiful pink color from the copious amounts of shrimp that they eat. Probably going to a few too many cocktail parties. So who's the judge? Now as we head down into the Lost Forest, some safety reminders to make sure you keep your arms, legs, heads, tails, wings, tusks, horns, anything you might have inside of the bus at all times. We'll make sure we're having a safe tour today. Now, if you do decide to stand up at any point, which you are allowed to do, make sure you have both feet firmly planted on the ground and to hold on to something as well, just in case of some any sudden movement. Now, looking around, you might notice there are a lot of plants at the San Diego Zoo. Now, usually when you think of a zoo, you're just kind of thinking about all the animals we might have. But did you know that we are one of the most visited botanical gardens in all of the United States? And that's probably because we have about 7,000 different species of plants and 1 million individual plants. So that sounds like a lot of work to take care of all that to me. However, we do have a wonderful horticulture staff that knows just about everything there is to know about every species we have. So, let's go look on our right as we come up this little turnout. And let's look for our very first big cat. We have our Malayan tiger habitat on our right. Now, they do have stripes for camouflage because they don't want to be spotted. So let's look to see if we can spot any. And I'm not seeing anybody out right now. So let's keep moving on down. I'll let the back of us get a chance to look though. I'm not seeing anybody out right now. So let's make our way down to Hippo Trail, where can anybody guess who we might see next? That's right, the okapis. Yeah, we love the okapis. They look like they're kind of related to zebras. However, they are closest relatives to the giraffes. One of those similar characteristics that they share is that they have a 12-inch long tongue. So a very helpful tool to eat and food themselves. And they're located all the way in that back habitat. They're walking around right now. They have those nice black and white stripes. Now, we do also have hippos on Hippo Trail. And I do see some down in the water right now. Because they are amphibious, so they spend time on land and in the water. Now, when you look at a hippo, you might think, wow, that is a very fat animal. Which is rude, so don't say that. But they are in fact largely muscular. Now, because they are largely muscle, they actually cannot swim. They actually sink straight down to the bottom of the water. Because they're between 2 and up to even 4 tons of weight. And actually, we're getting a very nice view of our okapi. Looking around green.
Museum of Natural History that we went
Unfortunately,
to last time.
we don't have the originals, so we have to make do with the okapis.
We saw the dead
So we'll keep moving on down. And let's go look for our next habitat, which is going to be a mixed species habitat. Now, that is not due to some sort of housing shortage that we have to have multiple species living together. We do that on purpose. We are trying to simulate what it's like out in their natural environment. So, let's look to our right and see if anybody's swinging about. Because we have our Allen swamp monkeys, our Schmidt's red-tailed monkeys, as well as our spot-necked otters.
Look, there's one right there.
Right.
Oh yeah, I see it.
But I'm not seeing any. Actually, I see one all the way in that very back next to that building. Now, a cool thing about Allen swamp monkeys is that they are one of the few other primates besides humans that go fishing.
No,
That's
I
probably
believe
how they're
walking my
running into all
way.
those otters in the first place.
I can't see.
Now, to our left, we are going to be running into some of our familiar feathery friends. Some more flamingos. We have our greater flamingos over here. They're a little bit different from our American cousins. They are a little bit larger in size, but as I was saying about that pink color, they get it from their diet. So I think because these flamingos are more pale, we can probably assume that they eat less shrimp. And they do. We said they actually eat a lot more algae than shrimp. Now, this next bird is also a really cool species of bird. These are white-breasted cormorants, and they are unlike most other birds. Most other birds have hollow bones
You want to stand right here?
that are nice and light and makes it easier for them to fly. However, cormorants have solid, dense bones, which is good for them because they like to go diving deep underwater. And they are still capable of flight, however, their feathers actually absorb water rather than repel it. Therefore, they have to sit out in the sun for a long period of time before they are able to take flight once again. Now, up here on our left side, you're going to see a bunch of bamboo. Super exciting. But behind that bamboo
Right there, bamboo.
is actually North America's very first animal hospital. Now, it was built in the 1920s. It's a very important facility, and it has been the start of a lot of very important technical procedures, new methods, and techniques to take care of our wildlife. One example would be our orangutan, Karen. So you can still visit her. Thankfully, they were able to fix what she had was a heart murmur. And so we had some cardiologists come in to perform open heart surgery on her.
Wala kayong ano?
And they fixed that heart murmur. And now she's still alive, healthy, and happy, living on Orangutan Trail. Where, if you head over and try to visit Karen, you might also be able to visit Kaja, our 2 to 3 year old orangutan male. He's super cute. He loves rolling around and swinging about. So definitely worth visiting. Now, we're going to be pulling up to Polar Hill, to our polar bears. Let's go take a quick peek to see if they're out right now. Now, I'm not seeing anybody out at the moment, but we can keep moving on. we have our hill of African ungulate. An ungulate just means a hoofed animal, so like a horse or a deer. Now my favorite is the bontebok on our right here. Now the bontebok is my favorite, and I think you can guess, because I like saying their name, bontebok. Bontebok is just fun to say. Although they do still have a very cool survival story from extinction. So unfortunately they got down to as low of a population as 17. However, they were able to be saved by a farmer on accident who corralled the last 17 bonteboks into their wildlife enclosure, into their livestock enclosures. And they were effectively able to be saved because they were protected against things like poaching and habitat loss. But we are passing our Skyfari, which is a very helpful tool that anybody can use here at the zoo to get to and from the front of the zoo to the back of the zoo, or vice versa, so long as you're okay with heights. But it is a pretty cool ride. Now on our right, we do have our 4D theater, which is very helpful to anybody getting a little too hot. It's one of the few places that actually has AC at the zoo. Now it is at an additional cost, so keep that in mind. But you do get to see about a 15-minute 3D movie. That's going to tickle some of your other senses. Now, we're coming up to one of my favorite parts of the zoo, the rock hyrax. They've gained some recent traction online, probably because they're super cute. But they also love to cuddle. And I'm seeing a couple cuddling right now. We're just on our left over here. Now, look at the rock hyrax. Can anybody guess who their
Nathan.
closest living relative might be? Maybe a squirrel, a marmot.
They're so big.
Give me.
We already.
Well, you might be surprised to know that their closest living relatives are elephants. There's about a 15,000 pound weight difference between cousins.
Do them, okay?
Makes for a heck of a family reunion. However, I'm sure you're all noticing on our right we have our pride and joy.